Hello, everyone. We're at that awkward point in the game where the planets are a little too long to do in one part, but a little too short to have, sizable two parts. So it is what it is. Also, Kit can now do Clank stuff.
Oh, of course. She is alternate universe Clank. Why wouldn't she be doing Clank's puzzles?
Because in character she doesn't know how to do these, and she's instantly given a mid-game difficulty one.
I do like this sort of middle of the game change of pace where we seem to be stuck as Rivet and Kit for a little while.
I think they also did want Rivet to be like the star of the show in a lot of senses because she was
Yeah,
new, and especially considering that the early response to her had been fairly positive from what I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned at the start of the playthrough, Ratchet's kind of the least important character in this game.
I mean, that's fair enough. He's had how many games to himself?
I want to say like 7 at this point.
I mean, we know pretty much everything there is to know about Ratchet. He's gone through his character arcs, and, there's not a whole lot much more to tell at this point. He kind of needs a shake-up to change the way he looks at things, and this whole multi-dimensional shebang is kind of a suitable shake-up to achieve that with. And when I think about it, this is a good setup to have Ratchet, start a new arc from the next game, but that kind of needs a bit of time to cook before it's, something that makes sense. So introducing a new character, new-ish in the sense that she's an alternate universe version of the same character, it does give us something to chew on while we wait for that to happen. And as an added bonus, they seem to have done the character well, which is, always nice to see, because it means you get to enjoy your time with the story while it's happening, rather than waiting for the next game where things hopefully get better. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to shift into a Sonic tangent again. It's just happening so often.
Listen, I still just think that it's a positive thing that they are taking their goddamn time with games. Because I think the worst thing for Sonic was when they felt like they needed to get a new game out every year, regardless of quality.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking a little further back to like whatever creative weed they were smoking when they made Sonic Heroes, where they brought back Shadow the Hedgehog after his character had resolved in Sonic Adventure 2.
Oh, well, no, that one's easy. That one's easy. That's because Shadow was popular and made them a lot of money. They continue to want to make money. So.
But, like, they deliberately set him up for a longer arc in the next game. In this game that is deliberately designed to have minimal story. And it's just like, okay, you couldn't have waited until next game to bring him back? Come on.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people agree that them bringing back Shadow was, as soon as they did, was detrimental because it cheapens the story beat at the end of Sonic Adventure 2 to have him be brought back immediately. With that said, I like longer acting plot lines and stuff like this. This is part of what I think Marvel movies do well in that there's longer running character arcs going on, but you can, generally speaking, jump in at any point and the character still makes sense. For example, let's take Thor Ragnarok. If you mostly have been watching Thor and you don't really follow the Hulk, but you know who the Hulk is, because of course you do, you get to the part where Hulk appears in Thor Ragnarok, and Hulk makes sense. There's very little that needs to be explained about what's going on with him. You just get to enjoy where the character is at that point, and then if you do enjoy the overarching plot stuff, then you get to enjoy Hulk's ongoing character beats from Avengers 2 into Thor into Infinity War. And if you don't care about ongoing stuff and you just want to watch silly superhero movie, then Hulk's great because they do a good job with the character in that. Obviously, considering that there's like 70 million Marvel movies, execution varies in quality in some instances. Like, I know everybody loves Loki, and he is a great character, but he's also like a different character almost every single movie he's in, which is just kind of weird and inconsistent. The only thing that's really like making the character work in a lot of instances there is Tom Hiddleston's performance. Because like Loki in Thor 1 is a very different character than Loki in Avengers 1, which, okay, that makes sense. He like fell through the dimension at the end of Thor 1, and he's being blackmailed-ish by Thanos. Okay, he'll act a little bit different. And then, same thing with like Thor 2. It's just like, okay, you can kind of see it, but he's still like a very different character than the movies right before that. And then it's like, how many times does Loki have to be a completely different character? And how many times are we okay with him changing personalities in a row? It's like, I don't know. I guess when you're the chaos character, it doesn't matter if you're consistent. You can be wacky and it doesn't matter.
You know what? The twist is that at some point Thor is going to ask a supercomputer from outer space what Loki's true identity is, and the computer is going to respond, there are 3 Lokis.
I honestly, considering the tone that they've been going with the Thor movies, that's not out of the question. Oh man, Ragnarok is so good, and I hope Love and Thunder is just as good. I think if I had to pick just one joke from Thor Ragnarok, and this would be hard because there's a lot of good ones, it's when Thor's trying to log into the Thor's trying to log into the ship that Tony Stark built, and he can't log in because he can't guess the username Tony gave him until he picks Point Break, and then it works. But I also, the best follow up is later on. Hulk guesses strongest Avenger, and then Tony picked that for his username, even though it didn't work for Thor, which I also just think is really funny. Thor's the best. Thor's most underrated Marvel character.
Well, because his movies didn't get good until the third one, so.
Thor 1's good. It's a solid B-. It's pretty good.
I'll say C- to be perfectly honest, but that's just
I maybe this is just
by the standards that superhero movies were at the time Thor's first movie came out. It's better than it would be if it was judged by the standards of today. I'll say that.
That is true. Yes, but I appreciate, part of why I like it so much is I appreciate that. For one, I appreciate that they were trying to go for something different with it. And I mean, I mean that in a number of ways. The Thor aesthetic wasn't an easy sell in the early 2010s, I should say. Because it's basically like a weird sci-fi, high fantasy mismatch. And superhero movies up to that point, the popular ones were fairly grounded, especially Batman and Dark Knight, and Iron Man even to some extent. Like, Iron Man's certainly more upbeat than Batman, but they're all fairly grounded in sci-fi, modern day kind of aesthetics. And Thor is pretty clearly a high fantasy
yeah, and that would be why Thor 1 focused so much on Thor having zany adventures in the real world.
Yeah, but that, I think the other thing too is that they took a risk, I think, in trying to get people to care about Thor as a character, as opposed to just being a big special effects spectacle the entire time. Like, they actually did get people to try to care about Thor the character and try to give him at least some amount of depth. I don't think they really succeeded in that until the Avengers. I think the Avengers movies did that a lot better, and then Thor Ragnarok is where they nailed Thor as a character. But oh boy, this is Near. No, not Near. God, Lair. That's it. That's the. Last time we were riding this dragon, I was thinking to myself, what's the name of that PS3 game where you ride the dragon that everybody was hyped about, but then it came out and it sucked, and everybody was pissed off? And it's Lair. Lair was that game, and
I feel like I've heard of this game, and then I might have expunged it from my memory at some point.
It came out like 2007, maybe. I remember it was one of the big like PS3 tech demo, like graphical showcase sorts of things. Because like you were riding the whole game, you're riding on a dragon, and like there's a whole bunch of like epic dragon fights in the sky and whatnot.
I feel like anything that was explicitly designed to be a PS3 tech demo was doomed to failure because the PS3 just did not have the correct configuration of advantages and disadvantages to be the technically impressive system at the time.
There was also the matter of like the game was almost exclusively controlled with the 6-axis as well. If I remember correctly, I am not a Lair expert.
Yeah, they were doing a few games like that. Flower was one of the more successful ones.
Yeah, but Flower had the advantage of being a fairly small game where they can
little casual experience that's over and done with in one day.
Yeah, as opposed to big AAA action game. Yeah, and I remember it was considered a flop fairly early on, and it was part of like the PS3's very early reputation of not having any good exclusives.
Flower also had the advantage of being a small, graphically simple game that was played directly off of the hard drive, whereas one of the PS3's weaknesses as a system was that it was using very early generation Blu-ray, so slow disc reads all around.
Yeah, the PS3, generally speaking, had longer load times than the 360, if I remember correctly.
It was the first system that started to popularize installing the games onto the hard drive, because doing so would substantially lessen the load times. And some games were, like most games that went really hard on their graphics, straight up needed to be installed, like Metal Gear Solid 4. Metal Gear Solid 4 was obnoxious about that.
Didn't the installs for that too take forever?
Yes, they did. But unfortunately, here's a fun platforming section we could have done, but it's all cutscenes, so we can explain some of Rivet's backstory.
Oh. Wait. Why would they build something like this for a cutscene?
Basically, so we can get to the part where we realize that the robot that blew off Rivet's arm was a certain someone riding on her back.
Oh, okay.
It happened during a mission. I found
Oh.
the Emperor's Tower.
Wait, hang on.
So I tried to sneak in.
I'm sensing
The door was
some dramatic irony here.
when a nefarious war
Yep.
box was nearby. I thought I could run.
So why does Kit not want to be evil anymore?
We'll get into that later.
Okay.
The thing is that when Ratchet and Clank first met, one of the major like events in the first game was Clank's arm being broken
That's fine.
and Ratchet, fixing it for him. So
Boy, that was an easy predicament to get out of.
Maybe Ratchet and Clank have some good
that was almost as like inconsequential a diversion as being sent to the void by Dr. Eggman in Sonic Forces.
Yeah,
Wait.
it was completely unnecessary.
Oh,
We could
I
have explained this a
remember
different
that.
way.
Oh my god. Yeah.
The thing that was literally just a straight line. Yes.
Oh god. Sonic Forces is bad. That game is so bad.
It's more boring than it is bad, but
I like parts of it.